Good afternoon, my friends. This is Paul, and today I'm going to be reviewing to you Mario Party 3 for the Nintendo 64. This was yet another game that my friends and I loved playing together on the Nintendo 64. Not as much as we did Mario Party 1 and 2. Something about Spaceland seemed to really appeal to us. But we still had a blast, and I especially love the fact that Mario Party 3 had a dedicated story mode so that single players who didn't have enough friends still couldn't feel left out. I'm pleased to say that Mario Party 3 still manages to maintain the trademark friendship killer status that the early Mario Party games were particularly known for. It still manages to completely balance the luck and the skill in such a way that later Mario Parties really struggled to do, while at the same time adding a few new features, some for the better and some for the worse. There are actually two distinct gameplay modes this time around. There's the standard Mario Party, which is called Battle Royale, where you basically play Mario Party 2, but with all new boards and minigames. And then there's the dual maps, which I will explain a little bit later, but basically they overhaul most of the rules and turn it into a 1v1 type of experience. A couple of things have been tweaked to, for the most part, make this a much more pleasant experience. You can hold 3 items instead of just 1, and each item has its own dedicated icon next to your profile as opposed to just the generic mushroom icon that Mario Party 2 had. When you pause the game, you can actually toggle quite a few more adjustments to the settings, such as making the characters go through the board faster, as well as toggling only easy minigames, whatever that means. Now initially I thought that this was exclusive to Mario Party 3, but then when I went to fact check the first 2 games, it turns out they also have options, such as hiding the minigame descriptions or making the text go faster. The reason why I didn't think to check in any of the games was because I didn't think you needed to pause the game mid-board game to access these options. I thought, well, if you're gonna give options, why not do them while you're setting up the board game? That's what most Mario Party games do. But I just happened to pause in Mario Party 3 and not the first 2 games, and there was an option for control settings, and I was like, whoa, quality of life stuff, including an autosave on a Nintendo 64. That's amazing. I think that that was a bit of a cumbersome way to hide an options menu, but quality of life options are amazing, and if people praise Mario Party Superstars for being so innovative and speeding up the CPU turns, the original Mario Party games did it first. Mario Party 3 has different kinds of shops. There's the usual Toad shop, but then sometimes Baby Bowser will open a joint as well, and each of them has separate items. Of course, it's random which one you get. There are also spaces where either Toad or Baby Bowser will ask you a question, and depending on how you answer the question, you'll get one or more items. This is a bit of a mind game that you have to play, because they'll ask you questions that often seem like the answer is obvious, but they'll be evaluating how you answered. So for example, you might be asked, what kind of item would you like? And you have the choice between a powerful item, a standard item, and a lame item. And if you say a powerful item, they might say, oh, you're too greedy. But if you say a lame item, they might say, oh, you're just lying. So you have to think, what would this character want to hear? I think it also is slightly based on which character you choose. Like the more evil characters like Wario might require the more dishonest and mean answers. Either way, it's a neat addition. It's more ways to get items than Mario Party 2 had. Speaking of items, there are now several different item minigames that you can play. In Mario Party 2, the item minigames were specific to each board. Now you just pick from a wheel like you did in the previous Mario Party games. One new type of space I'm not a huge fan of are the Game Guy spaces. When you land on them, you lose all of your coins, then have to play a specific Game Guy minigame, and all of these are terrible. They almost exclusively rely on luck, and if you lose all of your coins. If you win, you get to double your coin count, and some of them let you gamble further to further increase your coin count. Not that I'm a huge fan of gambling, but I just think way too many of them rely on luck. And the fact that the steep penalty of losing all of your coins is just a bit too unfair. Like, again, as I said at the beginning, Mario Party games are about balancing the luck and the strategy, and this feels like way too much in the direction of luck. A change for the worse is that Bowser is no longer much of a threat. He really only shows up when you land on Bowser spaces. He doesn't have a dedicated event on each board like he did in Mario Party 1. He doesn't trigger anything devastating like shooting a beam at you that takes away all your coins like he did in Spaceland in Mario Party 2. In fact, the boards don't even really have a story behind them. Like in Mario Party 1, each board was themed after each character, and Bowser would have his own area where if you passed by him, he'd do something terrible that was usually based on what that board had to offer. In Mario Party 2, each board was themed so much that the characters would wear costumes, and there was like a story reason for why you would want to defeat Bowser, and there would be an epic ending cutscene, and it would feel like you really deserved it. This time around, they're just like, hey, this is a board, let's do this. So as a result, there's not really a coherent overall theme, and also as a result, there's no ending cutscene that differentiates each board. You just win, and it feels a bit anticlimactic. Thankfully, where Bowser really shines is in the story mode, but we'll get to that in due time. Another change I'm not particularly fond of is the addition of action time on the board. In some boards, you'll have to choose the correct input on time in order to make or break which way you go on the board. And I found that the timing for these was never satisfactory. Even when the game would give you a prompt as to when to press the A button, it never seemed to work for me. And I know some of you might be thinking, oh, that's just a Switch Online problem because it has input delay. Well, I had trouble with these even on the Nintendo 64, so I think it's just Hudson is not as good as regular old Nintendo when it comes to programming jump physics. 2 new characters have been added this time around, Waluigi and Daisy. New voice lines have been added for most of the characters. Charles Martinet now voices Mario, Luigi, Wario, and Waluigi, and all of them have completely new voice lines, which is much appreciated because Luigi sounded really weird in the first 2 games. It's also really cool that if Mario and Luigi are on a team in a minigame, they'll both say, I'm the best, in sync with each other. And seeing as Charles voices both of them, it feels super cool to hear him talking to himself simultaneously. I also like how Peach got new lines recorded as well, which again sound more like the Peach that we remember. Jen Taylor also voices Daisy, which I'm not as big of a fan of, as she just sounds like Peach, but with a bit of a cold. I think I overall like the boards better in Mario Party 2, because I like the unique theming, I like the costumes, I like the story cutscenes, and I think they just overall fit better with the whole aesthetic of an amusement park. Whereas with Mario Party 3, the boards they're not terrible, but the action commands really seem to bog them down. I also don't like the fact that the entire game is themed around Mario and his friends being trapped inside of a toy box, so everything has kind of a pop-up book feel, and considering that the Mario Party games on the Nintendo 64 all look pretty ugly, it seems like now the game looks even uglier. Most of the boards feel very flat, which, you know, Paper Mario made it work, but it doesn't work so well in a Mario Party setting. I also don't like the fact that when you pass by a shop or the Koopa Bank, why are the Koopa Banks still here? They actually have a pop-up animation, which doesn't take too long, but seeing as you pass by them so many times, it does overall drag down the pace of the game. Now that we've finished talking about the changes in the main game, let's talk about the mini-games. There are 70 mini-games in total, and none of them are recycled from previous Mario Party games, which is really nice. There are even new dual mini-games, or 1 versus 1 mini-games if you're in the dual maps, and this was probably done to accommodate the dual mode, but we'll get to that in due time. In Mario Party 2, each of the 1 versus 1 minigames were themed after the board you were on, so it's great that there's some actual variety this time around. For the most part, I really like the minigame selection. It seems like there's more of an emphasis on skill this time around. There are still the annoying luck-based ones like stacked deck, but for the most part, it seems like when you lose a minigame, it's your own fault. Except for the Game Guy minigames. Those are pretty terrible. Before we get into the duel map, I'd like to briefly discuss the story mode. There is actually a single-player campaign where the player you choose is trying to obtain the Millennium Star, and to do that, he or she needs to collect various stamps based on personality adjectives such as kindness and wit. The story mode is nothing mind-blowing, it's not a gripping narrative that's going to blow your mind, but it is nice that the characters have various personality vignettes where each character gets a chance to display his or her personality. Waluigi and Daisy steal every scene that they're in, and while it starts out very repetitive, like it seems like the same thing happens over and over again, gradually they introduce more and more ideas. Bowser is as funny as ever, and I like that it gives you an incentive to play through each of the maps without having to just randomly choose the order like you did in the past. There's even a dedicated final battle, which is pretty hard, but it has some impressive visuals for a Nintendo 64 game, and once you beat it, you can replay it whenever you want in the minigame room. Now that we're done talking about the story mode, let's jump into the duel maps, which is the brand new mode that Mario Party 3 introduced. In duel maps, you just have yourself and one other opponent, and your objective is to completely destroy the opponent's heart pieces. You can have up to 2 partners, one in front and one behind, and each of these partners are basically generic Mario characters, but they each have their own strengths and weaknesses, a lot of them tied to their personality. And I really liked seeing how these different characters played out so differently from each other. The boards are a considerable letdown from those in the main game, as they don't have a specific theme besides one gimmick, such as Gate Guy having you pay 5 coins to get through a gate, or the Backtrap map, being my least favorite, having spaces that reverse the direction the players go in, which makes this far more about luck than strategy because you don't really have any choices in where you want to go on the board. You kind of just have to hope that you get the right dice roll and the right spaces. When you pass by your specific color, you can get another partner that you choose from a roulette wheel. On certain turns, the roulette wheel spins slower than usual, so it's easier to pick the partner you want. In order to engage in battle with your opponent, you just have to be passing by while you're taking your turn. Whatever partner is in front will attack, and whatever partner is behind will defend. If there is no partner, then you'll attack your opponent directly. Each partner has an attack and a health system. The health system is how many hit points can they take before they're defeated, and the attack is how much damage will they do. If you attack with more damage than the partner's stamina, then the remaining attack will go towards your opponent. Now you also have to pay a salary for each partner per turn. So for example, if your partner has a salary of 1 coin, then you'll lose 1 coin each turn. There are spaces to power up your opponents, but those will not only power up your opponent, but it will also double your salary. The more powerful the partner, the more coins you'll have to pay. So when you're at the roulette wheel and you get an opportunity to be slower, it's good to think to yourself, do I have the budget to afford the more powerful partners? Instead of landing on blue and red spaces to either gain or lose coins, you'll now claim empty spaces as your own. If you land on your own space, then you'll gain coins. The amount will depend on what turn it is. But if your opponent lands on your spaces, then you will steal coins from your opponents. The happening spaces are much less themed based around the boards, and now they just cause some kind of special effect, such as getting coins, switching the positions of your partners, or restoring your health pieces, to name a few. Overall, I really like duel maps. It's a lot of fun to experiment with the various partners and try to attack your opponents. You don't play as many minigames as before, but there are just enough minigame spaces to allow for more dual minigames, even if they're the only minigames that appear, and so you do see quite a lot of repetition, but thank goodness they got rid of the themed ones in Mario Party 2, or this would have been quite the drag. I also think the maps are for the most part great, except for the backtrack one. Some people might complain that it takes a little bit too long to go through, but I personally love the strategy element so much that I'm willing to overlook that fact. Overall, Mario Party 3 is a really amazing game that's definitely worth your time. Personally, I would prefer getting it on the original Nintendo 64 hardware over the Switch, just because, like in Mario Party 2, some of the music is warbled, thankfully not the sound effects this time around. It took them almost a year between Mario Party 1 and 2 and then 3 to release on the Switch, and they still couldn't fix the warbling. In fact, I actually think they made it worse because even when I played on the TV, the warbling was there, whereas in Mario Party 2, it was only in handheld mode. I know it's not just my headphones because these are the only two games that have that issue for me, so Nintendo must have really bungled it up. I am very satisfied with how Hudson really seemed to nail the structure of Mario Party from the first two entries. Even though I haven't played most of the later Mario Party games, from what I've heard, they seem to go too far in radical directions, and that's why Mario Party Superstars was like, well, let's just back up and basically glorify the best parts of the N64 games, and I think that was the right call. If you have Switch Online, then you'll be overjoyed to have both Mario Party 2 and Mario Party 3 on the same system. Would I prefer Mario Party 3 over Mario Party 2? I'm not really sure. Both of them are so solid that I would recommend both of them if you had a chance. But if you're getting them on actual Nintendo 64 cartridges and have to choose as opposed to having Switch Online, I think I'd slightly recommend Mario Party 2 for the sake of the theming and the cool cutscenes at the ends of the boards and the lack of action commands, but at the same time Mario Party 2 has the dual maps, so there's that variety there, and it also has a story mode which makes it more fun for single players. So choose what you want. If you want the additional dual maps, then Mario Party 3 is great, but Mario Party 2 has more theming and personality. So with that, thank you very much for watching. Let me know down in the comments if there's anything that I missed and anything that you'd like cleared up. I love reading the comments. I love responding to the comments, so please don't be shy about sharing your thoughts. Special thanks to my patrons, Matthew Rakowski, Sploonghost, and Splatcat, for their continued financial contributions. And until the next time, remember to keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless. Bye!
Yahoo!